This is David Dubal, and Peter Frankl is my guest. And as you know, he is recognized as one of the outstanding pianists of his generation. Indeed, he is a pianist who has played all over the world, and we're going to just sample just a little taste of an artist who has given the world so many recordings of a wide repertoire, to say the least. The first thing I want to say is hello, Peter Frankl.
I'm pleased to be with you.
The nation of Hungary itself has an amazing history, and because it's in Eastern Europe, it never had the kind of publicity as a literary nation that it should have. But of course, it has gone through many, many problems in its lifetime.
Yes.
And Peter, it is a nation where it seems there is a very deep love and tradition for music. Someone once said to me, in fact, I think it was a student of, do you remember the pianist István Nadaj?
I heard the name.
Yes. Well, he was a Hungarian pianist, and I think that this student was telling me that he, or at least someone, said that everyone in Hungary plays the piano with ease. Is this a legend or a lie?
Well, I think in a way it is not 100% true.
Of course.
Nowadays it's more true than it was before, because Hungary is supposed to be a nation for string, particularly violinists.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, all this tradition of gypsy music comes both from Romania and Hungary, which sometimes wrongly were thought that's a pure Hungarian folk music, but it is really not, because gypsies, we don't have to trace them, where are they coming from, but they influenced a great deal in the Hungarian music life, but the real Hungarian folk music comes from a different source, what, as you know, later on Bartók and Kodály explored to the full. So, interesting enough, it's mainly a violinist's country.
Yes.
Used to be, because it's very interesting that in the last 20 years, Hungary didn't produce practically a single solo violinist. They have some excellent string players, all absorbed in orchestral or chamber music works.
Mm-hmm.
I have to mention the name of the Liszt Chamber Orchestra. It's a beautiful string orchestra, and he is excellent violinist, and some of the younger generation of string quartets are excellent from Hungary, but the soloists, I don't know, they didn't emerge lately.
Well, pianists certainly have.
Did.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we were speaking of the authentic folk song tradition of Hungary, which was so explored and understood and notated down by Kodály and Bartók. Well, Bartók is a great figure in your career. You studied with a Bartók student, and you studied with Kodály himself.
Yes, but it's somehow most of us studied with Kodály.
He was a national institution, wasn't he?
He was a national institution, and at his earlier years he taught composition as well. But when I was a student at the academy, he only taught Hungarian folk music, and that was very interesting, and but I wouldn't call him in this respect a great teacher. So it was good to experience his quite unique personality, but I don't think I particularly learned a great deal generally musically from him.
But I think you did learn a great deal from a man by the name of Ernandi, right?
Ernadi,
yes,
who was himself a pupil of Bartók, Dohnányi, and Schnabel, so different kind of culture, musical culture, and fortunately he was able to transmit that to us, and I have to mention another name, Leo Weiner, who would celebrate his 100th birthday this coming spring, who was a great figure in the educational point of view in Hungary. he was the father of practically everybody who is now in the musical scene all over the world in music. He was teaching chamber music mainly, and if you look around, people like Scholti, like Dorati, and famous string quartets like the now not existing Hungarian string quartet, and you can name dozens and dozens of people. They all studied very, very thoroughly with him, and that was an especially unforgettable experience.
Oh, and he was also a composer, Leo
He was a
Weiner.
composer, but somehow I have the feeling that he was born a little bit too late, because he was a true romantic in the real sense of 19th century, and his music is mainly outdated, although he wrote some beautiful works.
Even Dochnani, in a sense, was born a little bit too late.
Yes, but even I would think Weiner even more.
Yeah.
Occasionally I play his second violin sonata, which I will actually perform with my friend George Pauk in the centenary year in Budapest, which is a remarkably beautiful, sincerely felt music, and first three movements are very good. Like most of romantic music, the last movement is a bit of a letdown.
Well, that brings me then to why, because so many important concertos even have let down finales. What is it? Is it inherent in the three movement structure?
I don't know. Maybe they really had, the great people had some kind of a shyness to round it off, what they so openly exposed at the first two or three movements before, and they had somehow, I wouldn't say run out of ideas, but they didn't want to be too obvious with an effective ending, and somehow they were afraid, even Brahms or Schumann.
Oh, absolutely. It's all over music, and we hesitate even to say which works, because some of them are very sacred works to us.
Even, for instance, a great piece which I am in love with, the first piano concerto of Brahms, is a beautiful last movement, but somehow you have a feeling that he tries to finish it off three times. You have three kind of false ending.
Yes.
And it's fascinating, and now we came to terms with it. But if you try to analyze it musicologically, I don't know. But we don't have to analyze it after all, because I think we are living in a way too much of the time of analytical, scientific mind. We are analyzing everything. We should let sometimes.
Let it alone
speak.
Sometimes. Yes, because the music has to eventually speak, and we can't, decide to not play the last movement of the Brahms D minor because it may be weaker. But in fact, many people don't know that it's weaker, so let it alone. And someone once said to me, analysis is paralysis. Anyway, Schubert, indeed, Peter, he discovered how to solve that problem in many a work by leaving it unfinished. And we're going to begin our program, by the way, with a late work in your performance. It's very unknown, really. It's an allegretto in C minor. It was composed in 1827, and it's a beautiful work, isn't it?
It's a beautiful work, and it's a late work, and it's very much in a way the style of the C minor big sonata, although it starts with the opening movement of the sonata it's a very dramatic piece, and this is not, it's more resigned.
Yes, pensively sad.
But you have the touch of this atmosphere as well in the sonata.
Yes, it's truly late Schubert, and we're going to now listen to my guest Peter Frankl's performance of the Allegretto in C minor by Franz Schubert. a marvelous work of Schubert's last years, in fact 1827, so he was to die in 1828, and it has that sad quality, doesn't it, Peter, of so many of those works.
Kind of melancholic and contemplative at the same time.
Yeah. The artist performing that, my guest Peter Frankl, who has a discography that is absolutely wonderful. Peter Frankl, you have been working hard your whole life, haven't you?
Hard in a way, but I tried to enjoy myself. I am not the type who is really sitting at the piano from early morning to late evening.
You're not a compulsive practicer of 20 hours a day, then?
No, certainly not. And
that's a waste of time.
I wouldn't say that. It's, again, a question of personalities. Everybody is different, so... not that I am a genius and I don't need... but I came into terms with certain physical thing of my existence, that I am not capable to play everything.
Yes.
So we are fortunate enough with pianists that we can select. And I have a very wide repertoire with great difficult technical. I would say that I try to specialize on the easy pieces, which one would say easy technically, but it doesn't exist such thing as well, because technique is such a wide range of a term that technique is really to play a beautiful phrase of a slow movement of a Mozart sonata.
That's real
That's
technique.
also technique.
That's true
technique.
But
on the other hand, I am playing, which is considered top difficulty technical pieces like second Brahms piano concerto or second Bartók piano concerto. But there are certain kind of purely virtuoso pieces like many of the Liszt studies and things like that, which I decided and I realized earlier in life that it is not for me. So I am very happy to listen those pieces with others, but I can escape that during my lifetime. And also it varies throughout the years. When I was a teenager, Chopin studies came very easy to me, and there were certain studies I didn't play, but certain studies I played sort of regularly and without difficulty, and I don't think I would play them now. But we are really lucky with pianists, so we can select our repertoire, and as ages are coming, we can change the repertoire, and we can come back to it again if we were tired of it emotionally at the time. So I don't think that I am a sort of a slave of my profession, and I think, at least in my view, I have to enjoy other aspects of life within music as well, because I listen. I can't live without music. So even in my vacation time, my family is sometimes really getting so annoyed with me, but I am sort of cassette recorders or radio always open, and I listen all kind of music, least often piano music. So I am very much involved in the operatic repertoire. I love to hear, and whenever I am in a city where it's worthwhile to go to an operatic performance, I make the effort, even if I have a heavy schedule, and chamber music and symphonic repertoire. So I try to be as Catholic in taste as possible.
Well, Peter, obviously you're a man who knows the piano literature, knows your own hands, knows yourself very well, and indeed
and not only hands, but even emotional involvement. There are certain composers, for instance, whom I like to hear a good performance of it, for instance Rachmaninoff, but I wouldn't be able to identify myself why I am sitting there, that I should give justice to this composer. So I don't play them. Maybe it's an easy way out. But,
no, you've come to terms with what you emotionally care for. So you can't sit at the piano all day learning everything. And my goodness, what you have learned is amazing. You were just, of course, playing in Detroit the Bartók concertos, both 1 and 2, and I know that you are going to New Zealand soon. Your career takes you everywhere.
Well,
is it a hard life?
It is a hard life, and it's getting more tiring, the traveling aspect of it. Otherwise, it is just another place to play, and I think we ought to, our audience, to take every concert as seriously as possible. I don't think that in our mind, maybe sometimes we think that there are sort of more important concerts than the others, but basically it shouldn't happen, because at the smallest places also you can find extremely appreciative and knowledgeable audience, and we first owe to the composers to try to give justice what we are performing. It's not always succeeding, and then of course for our own reputation and for our own peace of mind we have to try our best all the time. And I know if I have a bad concert, which we can't avoid, we all have occasionally, I have sleepless nights afterwards, and I
no matter where it is,
and I am not happy until I correct it the next time.
Yes. Well, you've called, I believe, being a concert pianist a crazy profession.
It is a crazy profession, because you have to be on top form at a certain time of the day when you might want to do something totally different.
Oh, how true. How true. Peter Frankl is my guest, and we heard the Schubert Allegretto in C minor, which is quite unknown. We're now going to hear a charming little piece of Chopin's youth from Frankl's complete performances of the Chopin Polonaises. This is number 15 in B-flat minor. Of course, it's not really 15. It was composed when he was 16 years old. And you mind if we listen, Peter?
Well, I forgot the piece altogether, so it's
I know it's
might as well remind me what it's all about.
I've chosen it because, it's just a charming piece, and nobody knows it. Let's hear Peter Frankl, Polonaise, Chopin. You have just heard Peter Frankl in a performance of a very early work by Chopin. He was all of 16 years old, and Frankl played it with that kind of nostalgia that this kind of work needs, that bel canto, Bellinian coloration.
Yes, that's. I very often compare composers with, if not operatic, it's somehow it has something to do with the human voice,
Yes.
which is the most natural of all instruments.
Chopin was crazy, of course, about singing.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. He wrote lots of songs, but he is well known for his
Yeah.
piano output.
He sang on the piano.
Yeah, and in many composers' mind, I think that was first and foremost apparent. Schubert was a song composer,
Of course.
and that's you can't deny that, and you have to phrase it that way. And talking about the operatic aspect, if you play a Mozart piano concerto, you can't ignore the characterization of the principles, and it is all there in a concerto, a last movement finale. Think of the G major concerto after the set of variations, the real finale, the presto finale, when the whole cast is assembled.
Mhm.
It's unmistakably operatic, and if you are not familiar with it, you can't really perform.
Absolutely. We are going to hear now, Peter Frankl, a selection, the first selection of Hungarian folk songs for violin and piano by Bartók. Now, of course, we know that Bartók was a great pianist, and so many people, if they had only heard Bartók play or listened to his recordings, they wouldn't smash him around the way they do, because he too had a very beautiful sound.
He had a fantastic sound, and incredibly enough, what people are ignoring nowadays, a great flexibility and freedom. There exists excerpts of his performance of the second piano concerto.
Yes, there does.
Which is a terrible recording. It was a live performance in Budapest when Ansermé conducted the Hungarian orchestra, and you can see that the most percussive parts were really he was doing it singing.
Yes.
and with great freedom.
Sure. After all, Bartók studied piano with István Thoman, who was a Liszt student.
Yes, of course. He's a great romantic, and he never denied his connection with romanticism. And of course, he learned a great deal from Richard Strauss early on. And really, his great favorite was Heldenleben. At an early age, he played a piano version of that. So he was basically a romantic, and this profundity, it's very often ignored nowadays. They try to make the percussive element first and foremost.
How silly, because Bartók is he has an internal song, no matter how dissonant he is. Peter, who are you playing this with?
Well, I'm playing with a childhood friend, George Pauk, with whom we recorded earlier on the complete Mozart and Schubert piano violin music. And that was made relatively recently in Budapest, where I am returning quite regularly.
Is it a Qualiton record?
The Hungaraton label.
Record.
So he's a childhood friend of mine, so we started to play together sonatas when I was 10 and he was 9. I wonder how it was when we first played the Spring Sonata together, but hopefully it improved throughout the years. And we recorded the 2 sonatas, 2 rhapsodies, plus a few sort of fill-up works.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting transcription by a violinist who was a Bartók pupil, Tivadar Ország. But that's one of the rare versions when Bartók himself made a very sizable contribution of rearranging harmonies, not like some of the transcriptions what Szigeti and Székely did, because that was just the violinist's transcription with the approval of Bartók, but this one he really took part.
Well, let's hear, since this program is a taste of Peter Frankl's discography, it would take about 90 programs just to get through what you have done on record. Let's hear a little bit, the first section of the Hungarian folk songs. You have just heard the first section of Hungarian folk songs by Bela Bartók, the artists, George Polk, violinist, and my guest, the very important pianist, Peter Frankl. And Peter, if you do not mind, we have a little message, and we'll be back in a moment. My guest on this program, Peter Frankl, born in Budapest, living now in London, but of course, as all international pianistic stars are, citizens of the world. Do you feel that?
Yes, definitely. With all this traveling, I love it, and I am very happy to live in England. I owe a great deal the fact that I moved there. Actually, I moved via Paris. I lived 3 years in Paris, which at the time I found it a kind of
well, they're not always musical, of course.
Yeah,
to be frank,
it is better than it used to be.
Yes.
But that time it was a dead end to me, and I am very grateful that I went over to London. And
many pianists live in London. Yes. Vasari and Pariah and Brendel and yourself.
Radu Lupu, and there was a time when Ashkenazi and Barenboim. That time, actually, when I moved there, they were all living there, and I could easily say that was about the time when we all made London a kind of capital,
headquarters
of music in the world.
Yes, indeed.
I don't want to degrade New York's importance, but I think now, if anything, New York is more important than London.
London
right
was
now.
Really shining, Peter, around
yes,
69, 70s,
yes,
early 70s.
It had a nice, especially flourishing 20 years.
I know that you made your New York debut with Zell and the Cleveland Orchestra, which is always something that's special for any pianist to have played with Zell. But who are the great conductors you have played with?
Well, I was up to now, I was very lucky in some of the great conductors of every generation I played with. I of course, George Zell was a special inspiration, and he was really quite special to me, but I don't think only to me. He's very much misunderstood nowadays. Obviously, he was a very hard and very serious person. And some people are making fun of him because of this over seriousness, but he was very helpful with young musicians, and really he liked
them.
Yeah,
yes.
he was taking music damn seriously. That's it.
Life is serious.
Yes. Maybe for certain people it was too serious, but I don't think he denied some of the emotions in music, like jokes and humor. I'm sure he used it when it was necessary, but the approach to music, the attitude towards music, and that I learned a great deal from him. He and together with the Cleveland Orchestra is great friends of mine, and ever since I returned there, and there are 2 orchestras in America which are very grateful, sort of faithful to me, which I am very proud to announce. Beside the Cleveland, there's the Chicago Symphony, where I also, in my first American tour, I played with them, and ever since I returned with Sir George Scholti. I played
well, he was born in Budapest too.
On several occasions. But among the conductors who died, for instance, great influence was Barbirolli, and people of the present day on different people like Abbado Muti, like Bernard Haitink, like Colin Davis, like Boulez. Of course, Curtis was a special friend. We were colleagues, so
Yes.
I didn't mention him, and I didn't want always to mention the Hungarians,
Mhm.
which is really.
But
we
they're
are all-
everywhere,
In
Peter,
any
they're
case,
everywhere.
we are considered as a mafia, so we
Well.
can't avoid mentioning them.
I don't
But,
mind talking to you at all.
but but really I am very lucky with that, and I had great experiences with conductors. I can safely say that one can learn a great deal from conductors, and it's always a special experience if you get along with a great conductor, to exchange ideas, even
Yes.
if you are not 100% the same wavelengths,
Yes.
but you can approach music from two different angles and come to a very valuable solution. That's actually in a sense is a kind of chamber music making,
That
which
is best, yes.
which is with a string quartet or with a piano trio, or when I perform with a pianist colleague like Tamás Vásári, which is very interesting because in spite of the fact that we both are Hungarians and we studied together, we are great friends, we are totally different personalities, physically as well and emotionally as well, but somehow we approach music. We have an aim which somehow somewhere meets. So it's a great challenge to.
I
to
don't
meet
think you're
this,
very different at all from Vásári. You both have that passionate desire to make music
Yeah.
and great enthusiasm.
but in a different way. And when we play together, it somehow it's at least for us is a great pleasure. But first of all, we have to please ourselves before pleasing our audience.
Yes. Peter, I must have a bit of Schumann on this program because you are widely associated with this composer. You've completed, I don't know how you've done it, but you have recorded everything of this great master. Is that right?
Yes.
How could one do such a thing?
It was hard work because it lasted approximately 6 years, because obviously I had to do all the concert works at the same time. So, but I have a particular affinity with Schumann's music, which again...
Did you know that from childhood on?
I think I did. And Carnival, for instance, was a piece what I played the first time when I was very young. And interestingly enough, that was the first piece what I got tired of. But as a great piece, it is coming back to you. So... I always felt an affinity, maybe because of the emotional contacts, and that's what going back to musicologists, they somehow they can't put a finger on it why they don't like Schumann, because it's not the form which is interesting, but the expression and this many-sided character of lyricism and passionate and heroic, and that's really, it's a whole palette of musical emotions, human emotions, which can be found. Of course, not all the pieces are equally good, but if you are facing a composer's entire output, you have to face the weaker pieces as well, but it's worthwhile to
you become a
them.
deeper musician,
Yeah,
no doubt about it, even
definitely.
when you are
Definitely.
studying the
Definitely.
weaker works, because
because you have somehow, you
Yeah.
get certain kind of vision and the message,
Yes.
even when his mind was already not fully operating towards the end of his life. You had some kind of rhythmical pattern, which is this obsession, and then goes on in your mind, and that's very fascinating too.
he was a tragic figure of a
yes.
person.
But in early, when he was associated with his piano music, very interestingly, earlier in his career. He just did bulks of
Yes.
certain forms.
There
He
it was
started
the real springtime of
time of
romanticism
piano
and
yes.
the piano itself.
And later he became involved with with songs, and then chamber music, and then symphonies. It's
Yes.
very interesting how
He got
how he
done
did.
with one
Yeah.
thing and moved with all his might into the next
Yeah.
song, the songs, then the chamber music, so forth.
But
We're
he
going
was the freshest in his piano music.
Yes, the freshest, without a doubt, in his piano music, Peter Frankl. You were going to play for us a wonderful moment from the suite called Carnival Scenes in Vienna, Faschingsschwank aus Wien. It's an intermezzo in E-flat minor. Are you ready for it?
I am.
Okay.
That's I know this piece.
Peter Frankl playing the Schumann E-flat minor intermezzo. E-flat minor intermezzo of Schumann in the hands of Peter Frankl. Well, if you want to hear Peter Frankl, you can go to any record store, Vox Cum Laude, Vox, Turnabout, Vox Boxes, Allegro Records, and of course he's made cassettes, and I'm sure you'll make CDs and digitalis and everything else one has to do.
But I even recorded this Hungarian Hungaroton,
Yeah.
and also for the EMI Angels, the Brahms trio, so everything.
So we have a man who gets on the airplane, goes to Detroit, then goes to New Zealand, then goes to London, then plays 50 Schumann recitals in Berlin, and he never stops. He's smiling. He's certainly a man who is in total command of himself. He hasn't slept in 3 days. He's been on airplanes. He doesn't look that tired to me. He has also recorded all of the Debussy piano music, and I cannot resist. We will sneak it in, but I must hear Les Joyeuses of Debussy. What a virtuoso beauty this is, isn't it?
Yes, lovely piece, and that was the fruit of my stay in Paris when I lived there after living Hungary for 3 years, and I got acquainted with French music, and particularly with Debussy, whom I love.
How wonderful to know that even though Paris was not that wonderful to you at that period, it still produced this harvest. Let's hear The Joyous Island, Claude Debussy. Simply marvelous. The Joyous Island from 1905, a work created by Debussy. Peter Frankl played it for us from his complete recordings of Debussy's piano music. It's been a delight meeting you, Peter.
Great pleasure.
Thank you for coming. And this is David Dubal. Thank you for listening.